Now, when Ford came out with the new Broncos, I thought they did a fantastic job modernizing the 60s and the 70s Broncos into today's world in 2023. I haven't really had a look at this one though. This is a 2023 Bronco Sport, the smaller little sibling with only a 3-cylinder under the hood. This one is for sale right here at ClearShift in Denver. I'm going to link that as usual down in the description. So what we're going to do in this video, I want to take a closer look myself onto this design from a front view, the side, the rear, the interior, and then we're going to take this for a drive.
Let's have a look at some of the basic spec and tech of the 2023 Ford Bronco Sport. You have a 1.5-liter turbo 3-cylinder, putting out 181 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque, connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It comes with all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 takes 8.5 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 25 city, 28 highway, and the price for this is $32,997.
Starting with the front end design of this Bronco Sport, I do love what's going on here. It clearly has some connection to the body-on-frame big brother, the Bronco. We do have the Bronco stamped right here in the middle of the grille. However, you can see that the top part here of the grille is actually closed off. The only opening that we have for this 3-cylinder that doesn't necessarily need a ton of cooling for it because it's so small, we have these slots right here at the bottom and these intakes in the bumper itself being the cooling for the front end. I do love the design of the headlights. This is definitely a throwback to the 70s Broncos and a connection again to the normal Bronco that we have, but it definitely has this more smooth look to it and not that rugged boxy shape that we have in the Bronco. Moving in closer to these headlights here, you can see that we have the big round LED going around the main headlight bulb, and then we have this line stretching into the grille itself, and this is clearly, you can see the rounded corners of this design compared to the normal Bronco, which definitely has a more upright and structural design, just like it should be for the big brother. Down here in the bumper, in this Badlands model, you do have the fog lights with a matte black bumper, and I do think that this is a good idea to have this unpainted, because if you're gonna take this on a trail, you don't want to worry about scratches and stuff like that. So just having it in black, matte black like this, I think it actually looks good on this car. So looking at the Bronco from a straight front view, the 2023 model, what I like here is that you can clearly tell that this is a Bronco. There is no mistaking this for any other car than a Bronco, specifically with these headlights here. One detail I do like that they added on the Bronco Sport as well is these fenders here. You have this crease going along the front fender. This is something that is more pronounced on the big Bronco, but you also have it in this design, which I think is a small but beautiful touch. Coming around to the side of the 2023 Bronco Sport, one line that is very similar to the one that we have on the Bronco is this shoulder line and the small little upswing that we have right before it goes into the rear window down here. I think it's a nice touch, adding some dynamics to the smaller sibling of the Bronco lineup. We also have the same style going up here. You can see we have a little bit of a dip here until it goes into a bit of a thicker piece of body painted roof. I think it looks good. Overall, it still has this boxy shape to it that we need to have for a Bronco. I'm glad Ford didn't do something crazy and went all organic, even with the younger brother in the Bronco lineup, and still kept it pretty boxy and still in line with what was going on in the 70s and 80s, for example. What do we have when we talk about the wheel and tire setup? We do have 17-inch wheels, very small, tiny wheels on this Bronco. I do love that in this case. I actually think these wheels with this almost gunmetal finish suit this car very well, and the tire size is 225 millimeter wide all around. I don't think I would switch these out because these are very functional. It feels like they're designed specifically for what this car is supposed to do. Take it on lighter trails, you still have a fat sidewall for the tires and a pretty rugged looking wheel. Then you also have the Big Bend sticker or logo right here looking fantastic, and some sort of styling here. This is not functional, this is just a plastic piece, but at the same time I think it adds something to the overall styling of the design here, to have a bit of a static looking graphic feature just like we have here. It's a nice touch. If you go back and look at the official design sketches for the Bronco when it was in development, you can tell that this was a fun project to work on for the designers. And I think that came in, it shows here in the production version as well. We have this almost industrial look, for example, with these things that we talked about in the graphics, but also have a look at this indent in the door. It's not a smooth at all indent. It's not one of these sweeping German lines. This instead feels a lot more rugged, and I think this type of styling for these type of graphics suits the Bronco Sport very well. It just would look so out of place if you had a smooth line down here, for example, like we have in the German cars. Coming around to the 3/4 rear view of the Bronco Sport, still a very good looking style on the Bronco Sport. I think it's such a congruent design. The same philosophy that we have in the front, in the side, comes back here in the rear. I do like that these Bronco letters, this Bronco Sport is in white. Pretty unusual to have those in white. It's usually in black, or most likely, most common will be in chrome, but we still have the standard Ford badge down here, the blue oval at the very bottom. And the wiper is still visible, but in this price range, I don't really care. And in addition, having a roof spoiler onto a Bronco Sport, again, that just wouldn't work for the overall design. One cool detail is that you have the split opening for the tailgate here, so you can open up the glass. Look at that, you can have this open if that's some small stuff you want to throw in there. Or, of course, if you want to open the whole thing, you just press the right side button and have a look at this. And you even have a divider in here to keep things more organized when you're tackling those trails and not have everything bounce around back here. This is not power assisted, obviously, in this price range. I wouldn't expect it to be. And further down, we do have the camera mounted right here in the middle. And I like that it says glass or door, so you know exactly which one you're opening. Let's talk about these taillights for a second. We do have an outline being fully LED. We also have a light bulb, not LED, for the indicator, which is totally fine because this is a relatively cheap car. And then you have the brake lights here in the middle with some reflector lights in other pieces of this car. What I like about this is, if you look at this design and the integration of taillight, it sits almost flush, but especially with the LEDs that goes around it, but then you have the rest of the taillight sitting inside of the body. I think it's a nice 3D design with this piece in the middle then sticking out further than the rest of the indicator light and the reverse lights right here. It's one of these details that it makes it more interesting than to just have everything sit flush with the bodywork, to have some 3D features like this. All the way down, we do have this solid black bumper. Again, same thing in the front end. I do like that we have it here unpainted, so you don't have to worry about scratches and stuff, because who cares about unpainted black plastic. But all the way down, we actually have dual exhausts here. But the funny thing is about these exhausts, some of the smallest, tiniest little exhausts I've ever seen. I cannot call this bazooka tailpipes because this is pretty much the opposite of that. I'm going to show you a close-up of what exactly they look like. Welcome to the interior of the 2023 Bronco Sport, and for sure, let's fire this up. Get that temperature down a little bit in here, blast the AC maybe. So let's talk about what we got here. This looks pretty modern, but at the same time you can see that it is pretty cheap materials in here, and that is completely fine at this price point, because not everyone wants to pay 50, 60, 70 grand for just a new car. I'm glad that these type of cars in this price range still exist, even though it means we do have some cheaper materials. But the design in here looks very nice. We do have an 8-inch infotainment screen here, pretty simple stuff. You have TikTok radio here for some reason. I'm not sure why that pops up. So let's go into settings and see what we got here. We have the vehicle. You can set all the settings for your vehicle here. The settings that you only set one time, for example, and that's about it. You have voice command, and of course you do have your navigation in here as well. Looking pretty nice with the setup that we have. The integration of the screen looks pretty nice because it has this slot for it, and you also have this little edge at the very bottom, creating a nice foundation for this design. However, I don't think I can't seem to find the map in here, so I'm not sure how you put the map up on this screen, or if you actually have to connect it to Apple CarPlay. If that's the case, again, that's not a big deal for me personally because I always use Apple CarPlay anyway. Further down, you do have the volume control, a decent sound system, I would say, and you have the tuning for the radio with some additional buttons here. The on-off for the automatic shut-off for the engine is right here, and then you have the hazards. On each side of this screen, you do have these very nicely designed vents. They're still very traditional in its functionality. You have a knob, you tilt it where you want the air to come out from, and that's pretty much it. You turn it on and off with this knob in the middle. But the design of it looks like the taillight of this car coming back in the interior a little bit, looking super clean and unique for the Bronco. That's really what we're looking for when we talk about Bronco design, both the Sport and the normal Bronco. Further down, you do have some storage down here to put your phone if you don't want to charge it. However, if you want to charge it, you do have a wireless charging pad down here at the very bottom. But before we talk about that, down here in the middle, we do have all the climate control settings. You do have the temp control to the right, and you do have the fan speed on the left side. This is very easily done because you don't have dual climate control in here, meaning that you only need to have one knob for each setting. The fan speed, one knob, temperature, one knob, and that's exactly what we have in here, making it really easy to figure out. You also have a graphic here of a dude sitting in a chair, exactly showing you where the air is going to come out from. And in this price range, you still have heated seats, but you don't get cooled seats, and that's totally fine again. Further down, as we talked about, the wireless charging pad is right here. You have two USB ports, one USB-C, one USB regular, and a 12-volt outlet. In the center console, this is where it gets really cool because we have this big dial for the drive selector. You have the reverse camera looking pretty grainy in this case, I have to say. But you do have trajectory lines, and I can make out barely what is a Cadillac Escalade and what is a Ram 1500, and that will give you an idea of the resolution in the screen, but still it's gonna show you all the big obstacles so you don't reverse into them. You also have the parking brake right here. Let's put it back in park, and the auto stop on and off. You also have GOAT modes. The thing that you have in the big Bronco comes back in the Bronco Sport. So you have some drive mode to select from here. For example, you have normal, you have eco, you have sport, you have slippery, and last but not least, sand. For those specific times when you find yourself in the desert and get stuck, just put it in sand and it should be able to get you out of there. On the right side of these selectors, you do have two cup holders, pretty standard in this silver trim. You also have a leather wrapped armrest that is pretty comfortable and very soft. This thing. If we open this up, here you have a USB regular and a USB-C, and the storage compartment is fairly large for a small little SUV like this. Moving on to the seats, these are cloth seats. They are very comfortable, and I have no problems with this at all. Again, if you want to keep the price down, there are people still who don't want all the luxuries and just want a basic car that is fun to drive and looks great, and I think this Bronco Sport is in that category. That goes for these seats as well. They look fairly functional. There's not a lot of styling to it. Moving on to the steering wheel here, and here we have the selector for the gauge cluster. So what you want shown in the center screen, you can figure that out with these buttons right here. You can go back to the menu and check that out. And you also have the settings for the voice command here. On the left side, you have the radio control volumes, and you have the cruise control settings on the left spoke. We also have a Bronco logo in the middle. No Ford badge on the steering wheel at all. Instead, you get the Bronco logo, which I really like. It makes this feel a little special. Now, talking about the gauge cluster, yes, we do have a nice housing for it, and this is hard plastic up here. Totally fine. We do have an analog tachometer, analog speedometer, analog fuel gauge and temp gauge, but you still have this tiny little display up top to show you whatever you want to have shown up there. You can customize that. On the left side, we do have another one of these beautiful vents, and you have the controls for the light settings here on the left side as well. Looking up top, there is no sunroof in here. Some might call that a bummer, but I'm totally okay with that as well. As you know, and you have somewhere to put your shades. Talking about the doors, extremely functional design. Everything is squared off and pretty horizontal, vertical, with not a lot of styling features in it. And that's the whole vibe of this Bronco Sport, is just to have it be functional, good looking, and I think that feeling from the exterior comes in here in the interior. Last but not least, we do have a proper size glove box for this type of vehicle. All right, so jumping into the back seat behind my own driving position. It is a little bit tight in here, but I still have plenty of space because I always have my legs outside of the seat in front of me. I don't think a lot of people sit with their legs like this when they're in the back seat. Most people sit like this, and if I do that, it's totally fine. Then you have this zipper up here, and this is what I want to see in more cars. This is really cool. Instead of having just a cheap pocket here, you have a proper zipper pouch to put your stuff in. Further down, you do have 2 vents down here, and you have 2 USBs, 1 USB-C and 1 USB regular. And let's see if we fold down this armrest. Yes, we do have 2 cup holders in here as well. Let's go. Let's take this 3-cylinder Bronco Sport out for a quick drive, and let's see what this is all about. Even though it is a 3-cylinder, I do think it sounds really good. It sounds better than a lot of 4-cylinders, that's for sure. And 181 horsepower, 191 pound-feet of torque feels energetic in this type of package. The ride is pretty firm as well, and I do have it in sport, so maybe that's why. But I do like it. I do like that I feel what type of surface I'm on. It feels nice. So let's floor it here. We're going downhill, keep in mind. 8-speed automatic. It's not a CVT, so that's good news. 0 to 60 in about 8.5 seconds. That's totally fine. As I said, not everybody wants a $60,000 car that goes 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. You know, there are the vast majority, I think, would prefer to have something like this that's just over 30 grand. You still get all-wheel drive and all these GOAT modes, and a very nice design, a nice, funky, modern-looking design. That's what I love about the Broncos in general. It's just such fun cars, and there's 100%. You know, it would be a dream project as a designer to work on the new Bronco, whether it be the Sport or the Big Brother. It feels a little jerky in sport, and I love that. It's like it wants to go. It just says, come on, let's push it and let's have some fun in stop and go traffic like we have here. It's actually a pretty fun car to drive. I don't mind at all that it has only a 3-cylinder and 181 horsepower. That's the thing though, fun cars is not at all just about the power and the displacement. Fun cars is about the overall package and how it all comes together on the road. And this Bronco Sport really feels tight and nice on the roads. Gonna put it in. Let's see what we got. Eco. Let's try Eco. See if we get the ride maybe. I think the ride is a little softer because we're driving over the same type of surface we went over there. Might just be imagination, but I do think the ride is a little softer in Eco than it is in Sport. Still a very nice car to drive in Eco. If you go on long road trips, cruising around town, keep the fuel consumption low, just pop it into Eco and you're good to go. This is actually a proper off-roader. You do have all-wheel drive. The ground clearance sits at 8.8 inches, which is not bad at all. It's going to take you where you want to go in this little SUV. Let's check the turning radius and let's put it back in sport because I love that little happy feeling that this car gets when it's in sport. Turning radius is decent. I didn't take full advantage of it there, but no problems at all. And it sounds pretty good. Even though we have small pipes for exhaust, it's still a fun sounding car. And you know what I just noticed now, which makes this so much cooler, is that I can hear a little bit of turbo whistle when I let off the gas. That's probably not going to come up on the camera or in this video, but if you drive this, listen closely. You can hear the turbo wastegate or something popping under the hood when you let off the gas. Very, very cool. Oh yeah, definitely a fun car to drive. This is a good experience. This Bronco Sport exceeded my experience, my expectations of what it would be to drive. I really like this car. Fantastic little machine. And the design of this thing and the turbo noise just adds to the overall positivity of this Bronco Sport. Huge thanks again to ClearShift here in Denver for providing this vehicle for me to review for you guys today. If you're interested in this Bronco Sport, make sure you go and check it out at clearshift.com. And of course, I'm gonna link that down in the description. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.